You don't destroy a diamond by throwing dirt at it. You just expose the fool who thought mud could replace value. Let that sink in. Now imagine this for a moment, chosen one. A person sees a rare flower growing from concrete. Instead of protecting it, they try to trample it, thinking it won't grow back. But the truth is, the concrete cracked because of that flower. That strength, that resilience, that was you. And them? They just made the dumbest mistake of their lives, trying to erase something that was never theirs to break. Here's a fact to keep close to your chest. According to modern psychology, people who feel inferior will often target the very person who threatens their illusion of power. That means their betrayal wasn't a slip-up. It was a calculated move born from fear, insecurity, and envy. And guess what? It backfired badly. Because here's what most people forget about you, chosen one. You weren't sent here to fit in. You were sent here to shake foundations. And the moment they tried to cross you, they didn't just lose your loyalty. They triggered the collapse of everything fake around them. And thank you, chosen one, for standing strong through it all. Don't forget to pay this message back by simply pressing the like and subscribe button to help spread this truth to more souls. It's the responsibility of all of us to keep the light moving. And thank you for being part of this mission. You're not just watching, you're part of a force, a frequency, a movement that can't be stopped. Now let's get back to what matters. See, when they wronged you, they weren't just making a poor choice. They were signing their exit contract from the very blessings they thought they could manipulate. They thought they were being smart, calculated, cold. They thought taking advantage of your kindness, your silence, your spiritual maturity was a power move. But what they didn't see is that you were the power. You were the blessing, the rare opportunity, the favor they prayed for but couldn't handle. And let's be real, some people don't want a partner, a friend, or a soul connection. They want a puppet, a mirror, a weak version of themselves they can control. So when you showed up, real, raw, divine energy in human form, it exposed just how small they really were. And in their panic, they made the dumbest move ever. They discarded the one person who had the ability to help them evolve. They laughed at the very soul that was carrying their breakthrough. They slandered the only one who saw them clearly and still tried to love them. And now they're haunted by that decision every single day. They scroll in silence. They replay old memories. They sit with fake smiles in public and silent screams at night. Because the truth always comes back around. And you, chosen one, are the proof of it. You don't need revenge. You don't need to explain. Your elevation is already making noise. Your absence is louder than any message you could ever send. Because when a chosen one walks away, the light they brought with them goes too. And that's what they're really panicking about. They thought they could replace you. But you're not replaceable. You're not copyable. You're a once-in-a-lifetime soul wrapped in quiet power. And now they're stuck watching you win from a distance they created. So sit back, chosen one. Let their consequences unfold. Let the silence teach them what your words never had to. Because the universe doesn't punish out of anger, it teaches with timing. And right now, the lesson is being delivered loud and clear. So before we break this all the way down, chosen one, take a breath and drop 888 in the comments if you know they fumbled the biggest blessing of their life, you. And if this message already hit a nerve, bless the team behind it with a super thanks. Every bit of support, whether it's a cent or pure intention, fuels this mission to speak what others are too scared to say. Your energy keeps this light uncensored. And now, let's dive into it step by step. And trust me, if you're truly chosen, you won't just watch till the end. You'll feel the truth rise up in your bones. Because what they did wasn't just betrayal, it was the dumbest mistake of their entire lifetime. Let's get into it. Number 1, they didn't just play with fire. They kicked down the door of a burning house and thought they'd walk out clean. You don't suffer when you play with darkness. You suffer when you aim it at the wrong damn light. Let that marinate, because someone just discovered that truth the hard way. They thought it was a game, a little shade here, a sneaky comment there, some backdoor manipulation behind closed doors, maybe a ritual, a smear campaign, a fake smile with a poisonous heart underneath it. But what they didn't understand, what their arrogance made them blind to, is that you were never ordinary. You weren't just another good person they could walk over and walk away from. You were a loaded spiritual weapon sealed in silence. Now imagine this, chosen one. A person stomps their foot into what they think is soft dirt, only to realize they stepped directly onto sacred ground with barbed wire just beneath the surface. They bleed out slowly, not because someone attacked them, but because they trespassed where they were never allowed to walk. That's what they did when they targeted you. That's what they activated. And the tragedy? They thought they had the upper hand. They thought their little schemes and half-baked spells would go unnoticed by the laws that govern the unseen. They didn't realize they triggered a warning system. The moment they projected energy at you with intention, whether through hate, jealousy, witchcraft, gossip, or straight-up sabotage, they weren't throwing stones. They were flipping a switch. And that switch? It activated something they could never undo. See, chosen one, you may not have seen it happen, but the universe did. And what most people don't know is that energy is currency in the unseen world. The second someone tries to spiritually bankrupt you, the ledger updates, and the universe starts collecting its debt. They thought you were soft. They mistook your patience for weakness. They saw your silence and thought it meant submission. But that silence, that stillness, it wasn't surrender. It was permission for the universe to act. And now they're facing the bill. Relationships breaking down, friends turning cold, doors slamming shut, money vanishing, health declining, nightmares that keep them sweating through the sheets at 3 a.m. That's not coincidence. That's karma on autopilot. That spiritual cause and effect snapping back with the weight of 1,000 unspoken truths. They thought they cursed you, but they actually cursed themselves by even daring to aim at you. And some of them still don't understand why everything they touch is turning to dust, why their fake smiles can't cover up the decay underneath, why they feel watched, exposed, vulnerable in rooms where they used to feel powerful. It's because, chosen one, you carry a contract. Not a crown you wear proudly, but a purpose that radiates through your bones. They didn't mess with a victim. They interfered with a vessel, and the system you're tied into, it's self-correcting. That's why you never had to stoop to their level. That's why your hands stayed clean while theirs burned. You don't need candles. You don't need revenge. You don't even need words, because your silence has become a siren, and every echo of that silence is now haunting them. Here's a hard truth most people can't swallow. Not every punishment is loud. Some of the most brutal consequences show up quietly, through isolation, through insomnia, through the crushing weight of guilt, through failed opportunities and shattered masks. They thought the danger was in the reaction, but they didn't know the real danger was in the target. You were the danger. Your glow, your calling, your frequency. You were the one thing they should have never touched. And chosen one, here's what you need to understand. You are not here to blend in. You're not here to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You were placed here as a mirror to expose illusions, and sometimes that exposure causes people to lash out, to project, to attack. But every time they try, they just end up attacking themselves. You want to know how strong your presence is? Look at the chaos they've been in since they crossed you. Look at how their life started spiraling the moment they chose to treat you like you were disposable. That's not a coincidence. That's spiritual law. Your energy isn't just rare, it's protected. And that protection comes with consequences. They didn't just hurt you, they challenged the very law that keeps balance in the universe. They stepped out of line, and now the balance is being restored. Let them feel it. Because the pain they're in now, it's not because of anything you did, it's because they violated something sacred. They tried to steal from a well they had no right to draw from. And now they're thirsty in a desert they created with their own hands. You don't need to post about it. You don't need to argue or defend your name. Let the universe do what it does best, correct what was crooked without you ever lifting a finger. And if you ever doubted who you were, look at how violently they reacted to your light. Look at the lengths they went to just to try to dim it. That's your proof. That's your confirmation. They didn't break you. They exposed themselves. So stand tall, chosen one. Let them talk. Let them gossip. Let them sit in the mess they made. Because what they did to you was the dumbest decision of their entire life. And the sad part, they're just now starting to realize it. But it's too late now. The system is already correcting. And you're already rising, unbothered, unshaken, unmatched. Let that burn. Number 2, they didn't just fail, they got hit with their own bullet in broad daylight and still can't admit it. When you throw darkness at the sun, don't be surprised if it blinds you instead. Let that pierce, because someone really thought they could shoot at you with spiritual ammo and not get burned by the recoil. They believed what they sent would land. They were sure their ritual, their chant, their whisper in the dark would sneak through like a shadow and shatter your spirit without a trace. But what they didn't know, what they refused to consider, is that your soul came coded with something they could never access. A divine boomerang. You weren't just protected, chosen one. You were reflective. What they launched didn't vanish. It bounced. Not only did it fail to touch you, it picked up speed, sharpened its edge, and went right back where it came from. And now they're living with it, minute by minute, hit after hit. Because the curse they crafted, it's now their shadow. The attack they designed for you. It's sitting in their chest, tightening like a knot that won't loosen. But they don't want to say it out loud. They don't want to admit that the universe is simply handing them their own dirty work with interest. They thought they were magicians, but forgot every trick has a cost if you don't know what you're doing. Now imagine this, chosen one. Someone digs a grave, hoping you'll fall in, but the ground underneath them collapses instead. That's what happens when people try to bury souls planted in purpose. You weren't just hard to destroy, you were impossible to touch, because you're not standing on ordinary ground, you're standing on truth. And when truth is attacked, it doesn't argue, it responds, not with noise, but with law. Universal law, unshakable, unemotional, and absolute. Here's what they didn't calculate. Spiritual energy is neutral until it's directed, but once it's aimed, once intention is loaded behind it, the law takes over. And if the energy hits a shielded soul, it doesn't just disappear into nothing, it reflects. And when it reflects off someone chosen, it comes back magnified. Not because you asked for it, not because you wanted revenge, but because the system that governs energy doesn't let darkness land on light without consequences. Now they're seeing those consequences in full color. Peace, gone. Connections, deteriorating. Health, slipping. Sleep, interrupted. Luck, dead on arrival. And no, chosen one, you didn't even lift a finger. That's what makes it worse for them. That's what's haunting them the most. You didn't retaliate. You didn't return the energy manually. You didn't light a candle or chant a word, but everything still started falling apart around them the moment they touched your name with wicked intention. And now they're watching their own spiritual reflection, and it's ugly. You don't have to strike back when the mirror of the universe is clean. It will show them what they are without you saying a word. They assumed you were soft. They assumed you were naive. They assumed you wouldn't know how to protect yourself. But the truth is, your protection wasn't loud because it was deep. Your alignment, your peace, your clarity, your stillness, those were your weapons. You didn't need noise. You didn't need drama. Your very being deflected what they threw. And now they're wondering why they feel cursed, why things feel off, why there's always this heavy presence around them. They can't admit it to others, but they feel it in their gut. This is what I tried to do to someone else. And now I'm sitting in the same darkness I wished on them. See, chosen one, they signed a spiritual contract the moment they targeted you. The moment they whispered your name with a dirty heart, they sealed a fate they weren't ready to live through. Because real spiritual systems don't play favorites. They play fair. Every spell comes with a receipt, and if it's undeliverable, guess who pays? You didn't ask for justice, but it came anyway. You didn't seek karma, but it arrived right on time. That's the beauty of staying in alignment. When you're grounded in truth, you don't have to defend your light. The universe does it for you. Imagine someone throwing a glass of poison at the wind, only for that same wind to turn and splash it straight back in their face. That's how the universe works, and that's what they never expected. They assumed your silence meant weakness. But that silence, that was the shield. That was the protection. That was the proof that you're not of this world. You're tied to a system that doesn't need human retaliation to serve divine correction. Now they're watching everything they tried to build crumble, not because you wished it, but because they violated energetic order. They aimed misaligned energy at a soul that was fully in alignment. And spiritual law, it doesn't tolerate imbalance. So if you're wondering why they're still lurking, why they can't stop watching your story, why they're suddenly obsessed with your silence, it's because they're afraid of what it means. Your lack of reaction is a louder prophecy than their loudest curses. They feel it now. Every room feels colder. Every plan meets delay. Every relationship turns strange. And they know deep down it started with you. They didn't just miss. They miscalculated. They didn't know who you were. They didn't know what your presence activated. They didn't know that your alignment made their attack invalid on arrival. And now they're the ones walking through the very ruins they tried to send you into. Let them. Let them wrestle with the reflection of their own energy. Let them sit with the weight of their own rituals, because that's not your karma. That's theirs. You didn't boomerang it. You didn't block it. You just existed. And that was enough. So don't explain yourself. Don't dim your light. Don't wonder if you imagined it all. They know. They feel it. They live it. And as you rise, they will fall. Not because you pushed them down, but because the truth always stands taller than the lie. Let that be your closure. Let that be your proof. You didn't just survive the attack, you reflected it. And now the mirror is doing all the talking. Number 3. They were already sentenced before you even knew there was a trial. The universe doesn't wait for apologies to deliver consequences. It moves the moment the line is crossed. Let that settle deep, chosen one. Because while you were sitting in confusion, asking yourself why they did it, the unseen realm had already slammed the gavel. They think it all started when you found out, when the truth came to light, when their betrayal leaked through the cracks. But no, judgment didn't wait for you to catch up. The very moment they moved against you, the system registered the violation. The clock started ticking. The tribunal was summoned, not by your tears, but by the imbalance they created. And once that spiritual courtroom opens, it doesn't ask for witnesses. It doesn't need your voice. It already knows. Imagine this, chosen one. You're walking through your life unaware someone's planting traps in your path. You don't see it, but the ground beneath them begins to crack instead. That's what it's like to be chosen. Your soul is wired to a system that acts on your behalf before you even realize the attack happened. You weren't late to justice. Justice was just ahead of you. They didn't just wrong you, they submitted evidence against themselves in front of the highest authority. Every word they spoke in secret, every intention behind their fake smile, every spiritual tool they used, thinking you'd never know. It was all recorded, immediately. No delays, no gaps, no denials. And now, they're not going through a rough patch, they're serving a sentence. Their life isn't falling apart randomly, it's a calculated breakdown, one decision at a time, one consequence after another. Because what they did wasn't petty, it was spiritual fraud. They tried to rewrite your destiny with their mouth. They tried to bend energy that wasn't theirs to touch. You don't get to mess with a soul carrying divine contracts and expect the universe to look the other way. What they're feeling now, that pressure, that paranoia, that collapse, it's not vengeance, it's weight. The weight of what they sent, the weight of the lies, the weight of spiritual laws snapping back into alignment. They thought you'd be the one to suffer. But now they can't sleep. They can't keep what used to flow. They can't control what's breaking. And they don't even realize this is just phase 1. The sentencing isn't over. The worst hasn't even hit yet. Because when you target someone who was never yours to touch, you don't just create karma. You summon judgment. And once it begins, nothing can stop it. Number 4. What they buried in silence is now eating them alive. You can't outrun a truth that lives in your bloodstream. They were bold when they did it, confident, cold, silent. They thought their ritual would disappear like smoke. They whispered your name with wicked intention and walked away like nothing happened. No fear, no remorse, not even a second thought. Because they banked on your silence, chosen one. They bet everything on you being too pure, too quiet, too unaware to ever know. But the dumbest thing they ever did was underestimate your spirit. You didn't need proof. You didn't need a message from anyone else. The second your energy shifted, the truth arrived. not in words, but in vibration, in stillness, in the tightening of your gut, in the quiet pull from the universe saying, "It was them." And the moment you remembered, even if you said nothing, something inside of them began to decay. Guilt is a parasite. It doesn't kill fast, but it never stops feeding. Now imagine this. They buried a secret in the ground, thinking it would stay hidden forever. But that soil, it's cursed, and now the roots of that lie are rising like weeds in every part of their life. Their body is aching, but the doctors find nothing. Their spirit is restless, but they can't explain why. They flinch when you walk by, choke up when you speak, avoid eye contact like it burns their skin. Because it does. You didn't say a word, but your energy? It started screaming the moment you healed. They're falling apart from the inside out. Nervous breakdowns, fake smiles, emotional outbursts they can't explain. The people who once cheered them on are starting to walk away. Because guilt spreads, it leaks, it infects everything it touches, and now their lies are unraveling faster than they can patch them. The conscience is not a jail, it's a grave, and every lie is a shovel. And chosen one, here's the twisted irony. They fear you now, not because you hurt them, not because you threatened them, but because your peace is unbearable. Your glow reflects their guilt. Your joy exposes their torment. Your healing turns up the volume on everything they tried to suppress. They thought they cursed you, but in trying to stain your soul, they infected their own. And now the sickness isn't external, it's internal. And there is no cure for a conscience drenched in cowardice. Number 5. They tried to steal your light and passed down a curse their bloodline can't escape. When you rob a soul protected by the universe, you don't just curse your name, you poison your future. They didn't just envy you, chosen one. They wanted to be you. They wanted your glow without your growth, your gifts without your grind, your destiny without your discipline. And when admiration turned into obsession, they crossed into something darker. They tried to hijack what was never theirs. This wasn't petty hate. This was calculated, ritualistic, intentional. They tried to copy your essence, bind your blessings, mute your intuition, thinking they could perform some late-night spell, whisper your name, light a candle, and steal your spiritual identity like it was merchandise. But what they touched wasn't ordinary energy. What they tampered with was sacred, sealed, heavily guarded by unseen law. And here's what they never saw coming. Touching a chosen one's inheritance is like trespassing in a temple wired with traps. You don't just fall, you activate ancestral consequences. They thought they'd walk away with your glow. But what they actually walked into was a generational curse. Now imagine this. Someone tries to break into a vault they don't own, hoping to snatch gold. But the vault wasn't empty, it was rigged, and when they cracked it open, they didn't just trigger an alarm, they triggered a lockdown. Not just for them, but for every descendant tied to their name. That's what happened the moment they tried to siphon your light. Because spiritual inheritance doesn't just protect the person, it protects the legacy. And when someone tries to violate that, they don't just get cut off, they get contained. Now their bloodline is infected. Their children and grandchildren will battle unseen blockages, identity confusion, deep soul fatigue. Not because they did anything wrong, but because someone before them thought they could steal from a soul that was born sealed. You don't curse a chosen one without placing a target on your own lineage. That's why their life feels strange. That's why things keep slipping through their fingers. That's why what they touch turns sour. They're living under a shadow they created. And now those they love most are paying for their spiritual theft. They thought they were binding your destiny, but they bound their own bloodline. And the most haunting part? They know something's wrong. They feel it. They see it in their kids, in their family's constant misfortune. But they'll never say it out loud. I triggered this when I messed with the wrong soul. You didn't just survive their attack. You exposed the cost of envy. And now their legacy carries a debt their rituals can't erase. Number 6. You're not just silent anymore. You're untouchable, and it's killing them. Silence doesn't mean you lost your voice. It means they lost access to it. At first, your quiet worked in their favor. They thrived in your stillness. It gave them cover, made them bold, let them move in the shadows unchecked. They mistook your calm for confusion, your stillness for submission. They thought your silence meant they won. But what they didn't know is your silence was the setup. And now, you're not silent anymore. You're surgical, selective, unreachable. You didn't need a loud exit. Your energy made the announcement. You stopped engaging, stopped trying to explain the truth to people committed to lying. You pulled back your light, and it was like someone pulled the plug on their whole illusion. People don't panic when you go loud. They panic when you go ghost. Now imagine this. A parasite feeding on a host it assumes will never leave. One day the host wakes up, shifts slightly, and suddenly the parasite can't find a pulse, no reaction, no emotion, no vulnerability to drink from. That's what's happening to them right now. They used to know your energy like a map. Push this button, get that response, say these words, and you'd fold, cry, apologize, explain yourself, doubt yourself. But now, they can't find you, not emotionally, not energetically, not spiritually, and it's driving them insane. Because when a chosen one detaches, truly detaches, the world they built around control collapses. Your withdrawal wasn't petty, it was power, and now your absence has become a sentence, a life sentence. They're not haunted by what you said. They're haunted by what you didn't say. No closure, no confrontation, just space. And that space is swallowing them. The scariest goodbye is the one that doesn't announce itself. It just never comes back. Now they're unraveling, acting out, talking too much, looking wild, desperate. Because people like this need your emotional frequency to survive. They need your empathy, your light, your forgiveness to fuel their false self. You stopped feeding them, and that's why they're starving. They thought they were in control of your narrative, but now they realize they never even had a seat at the table. You weren't weak. You were watching, and now that your eyes are open, your presence alone delivers a verdict their soul can't appeal. You didn't need revenge. You became the consequence. Number 7. They tried to kill your vision and accidentally awakened the power that sees through everything. The curse they cast didn't end you, it crowned you. They thought they were clever, that their whispers, candles, herbs and shadows would silence your soul, that the energy they sent would shut down your gifts like flipping a switch. They thought you'd spiral, collapse, forget who you are, that your clarity would fog over, that your strength would dissolve. But they made the dumbest move of their lives, because in trying to bury you, they cracked open something ancient. Instead of destroying you, their witchcraft acted like a spiritual defibrillator. It jolted your memory, not the kind you access with logic, but the kind that lives deep in your bones, in your dreams, in your pulse. They tried to send confusion, but all it did was burn off the illusions. They tried to bind your power, but all they did was hit a tripwire. You didn't shut down, you lit up. They didn't curse you, they activated the part of you they never wanted to meet. Now imagine this. Someone trying to sink a ship by adding pressure, but instead of cracking the hull, the pressure awakens the engine. That's what happened to you. They pressed. And in pressing you, they opened something they can't unsee. Your third eye didn't just open, it recognized. You started feeling everything before it happened. You didn't need proof. You knew. You saw behind the masks, heard what they didn't say, felt the spirits they carried before they ever entered the room. That's what terrifies them now. You're not angry. You're calm. You're not shaken. You're surgical. You're not reactive. You're aligned. Because now you don't guess. You know. And this knowing isn't arrogance. It's not ego. It's not even learned. It was unlocked by their own hand. They didn't realize the ritual was a key, and the key opened the version of you they prayed would never rise. You walk different now. You don't explain. You don't chase. You don't fold. Your presence speaks. Your stillness confirms. Your decisions prophesy. Because when they aimed spiritual death at you, the universe turned it into initiation. Now the atmosphere shifts when you enter. The air feels different when you speak. The same ones who tried to dim you now flinch at your presence because they feel what you've become. And they know. They helped awaken it. You weren't just spared, you were activated. Now you don't just survive. You see, you don't just speak, you reveal. They tried to break the chosen one. Instead, they ushered in the awakened one. And that's a frequency they were never built to survive. Number 8. They built an altar to control you and ended up locked inside their own trap. When you bow before darkness for power, you don't rise, you surrender. They thought they had it all figured out. Light a candle, whisper a chant, offer a piece of something sacred, move energy like it's a game, all to bend the spirit realm to their will and cripple yours. They thought summoning power was easy, that you could trade offerings for control, that you could command shadows without ever being swallowed by them. But what they never saw coming, what makes this their dumbest move yet, is that dark power always collects, and it never accepts discounts. What they summoned came with fine print, and now the debt is due. You don't use darkness, it uses you. At first, everything probably felt like it was working. People moved, doors opened, the mask stayed on, and the lies worked in their favor. But darkness is a cruel merchant. It lets you borrow before it owns. And now those spirits, they've taken over the lease. They can't sleep. They can't think. They can't sit in silence without something cold breathing down their neck. They've gone from controlling energy to being controlled by it. Imagine this, chosen one. Someone builds a cage for you, forges the bars with ritual and deceit, but when they step back, they realize something terrifying. They're inside it. They didn't trap you, they trapped themselves. And the lock? It vanished the moment they signed that spiritual contract. Now they live under terms they didn't read. The altar that once made them feel powerful now drains them. It doesn't respond the way it used to, because it doesn't negotiate anymore, it owns. The spirits they called don't want candles now. They want control. Control over thoughts, over actions, over relationships. They feed on chaos and spit out peace like poison. And the more you rise, the more your light spreads, the more agitated the darkness around them becomes. Because your frequency isn't just a threat, it's a reminder that they failed, that what they tried to kill in you is thriving without them. They didn't lose power because the spell failed. They lost power because you didn't. They aren't just cursed, they're enslaved, not to you, but to the very thing they thought would destroy you. Now their mind is a maze, their spirit a battlefield, their altar a prison, and there's no key. Because the moment they tried to trap a chosen one, they chained themselves forever. Number 9, they touched your light, thinking it was warm, but it was fire, and now they're burning. They didn't realize your peace was radioactive until it melted everything fake in them. To the outside world, you looked normal, kind, quiet, maybe even soft. But that was their first and final mistake, judging power by how loud it is. They assumed because you weren't confrontational, you weren't dangerous, because you didn't clap back, you weren't protected, because you didn't shout, you weren't seen. But what they never knew is that your entire being is wrapped in spiritual voltage. Your aura is a force field, your presence is pressure, and your energy, radioactive. You don't glow for show. You glow because your soul is armed. Now imagine this, chosen one. Someone reaches for a glowing orb, thinking it's warm light. But the second they touch it, their skin blisters. Not because the orb was hostile, but because it was never meant to be touched by dirty hands. That's what they did. They thought they could leech from you, bind you, manipulate your frequency like it was theirs to play with. But your energy doesn't work like that. It has a defense system older than their understanding, a built-in repellent to anything unclean. They touched it, and now they're unraveling. It didn't just block them, it broke them. It scanned them, found them out of alignment, and activated a spiritual lockdown. Now they're glitching, mentally unstable, emotionally explosive, physically deteriorating. And the scariest part, they don't know how to stop it. They're running to rituals, throwing money at fake healers, trying to erase the echo of a mistake that's already sealed in their energy. But this isn't karma. It's fallout. You weren't cursed, they were contaminated. You didn't scream, you didn't fight, you didn't even speak. Your field did the work. Because when you carry the type of light that purifies everything around it, people either rise or they burn. And they burned. You were never the target, you were the test. And they failed it the moment they tried to use darkness on something wired for divine order. Now they're deteriorating from the inside out, because not all light is soft. Some light is radiation, and your glow was never for decoration. It was for protection, and now they're paying the price. Number 10. The more they fight it, the deeper they sink. Now they're drowning in their own disaster. You don't get to undo what you did to someone who outgrew the timeline you cursed them in. They thought it would be simple: cast a spell, send some energy, tip the scales in their favor. A shortcut, a secret weapon, something they could control without consequences. At first, it felt like power. They felt invincible, like they finally found a way to manipulate fate without paying the price. But now they're in full-blown panic. Because nothing is working, everything they touch turns to dust, and what once felt like control now feels like a trap. So what do? They go back. back to the very forces that got them here. Same altars, same chants, same darkness. But this time, they're not standing in power. They're begging for mercy, crying, offering more, sacrificing deeper, bleeding spiritually, trying to reverse what was never meant to be reversed. But they don't realize you're gone. You're not the same version they targeted. That version was vulnerable, still healing, still unaware. Now, you've ascended. You shifted timelines. You outgrew the cage before they ever found the key. They cast a spell on a caterpillar, never knowing it would become a butterfly and fly out of reach. Every time they try to undo what they did, they reactivate what was already judged. And judgment, once sealed, cannot be bargained with. They're not untangling the curse, they're tightening the knot, because the energy they released already made contact with the system. It was seen, measured, returned. Now, each attempt to fix it is spiritual tampering, and the more they push, the harder the blowback hits. They're not experiencing karma, they're living inside a courtroom replay, and they keep screaming, "Reverse it," to a universe that already stamped "case closed." But here's the twist. They're not sorry. Not truly. They're not grieving the harm. They're grieving the consequences. They regret being caught, not being cruel. And the universe knows the difference. That's why the curse is evolving, stretching, folding itself into every corner of their life, not to destroy, but to teach. Some lessons don't end when the tears start. They begin. They started this. They kept going, and now they're locked in a cycle that only gets louder with every ritual, every bribe, every desperate act of spiritual manipulation. You didn't have to curse them. You didn't have to respond. You just rose, and in doing so, you made sure their energy would never touch you again. But them? They're still swinging in a ring you left behind, and every punch they throw hits themselves. That's not revenge. That's what happens when someone tries to undo a spiritual sentence that's already been delivered. They can't stop it because they won't stop. And now they've become the prisoner of their own persistence. Number 11. You weren't just protected. You were the divine trigger they should have never touched. They didn't just violate you, they set off a spiritual alarm that called judgment down on their entire life. They thought you were just another soul they could poke at, hex, or quietly sabotage without consequence. Someone who'd break, cry, fade into the background while they played puppeteer with unseen forces. But what they never knew, what their ego blinded them from seeing, is that you weren't just protected. You were the trigger. You weren't someone the universe overlooks. You're the exact kind of soul the system defends automatically. You don't have to speak to summon justice. You don't have to lift a hand for balance to be restored, because you carry a frequency that doesn't just bounce back attacks, it activates judgment. They didn't feel the shift at first, but the moment they crossed the line, it wasn't you they were fighting. It was the force behind you, not karma, not coincidence. Law. There are people the universe doesn't allow you to touch without paying full price. You are one of them. When they tried to curse you, all they did was set off a consequence that can't be undone, because your energy isn't just light, it's coded with spiritual assignment, coded with protection protocols that move without permission. You don't just glow, you warn, and they ignored every sign. They tried to manipulate your story, block your blessings, silence your voice, thinking there would be no backlash. But now, they're sitting in confusion, haunted by energies they summoned, unable to explain why life keeps collapsing around them. They're not cursed because of what they did. They're cursed because of who they did it to. The divine doesn't need you to clap back. It only needs you to survive long enough to be seen thriving. And chosen one, that's exactly what you're doing. You didn't just survive, you shifted. You didn't react. You ascended. And your elevation became the echo that sent their actions back like thunder. Every lie they told now feels like a weight. Every ritual they performed now circles their life like smoke. Their nervousness isn't guilt, it's spiritual exposure. They messed with something sacred, and now they're learning that not all pain is random. Some pain is divine correction. So don't question why you felt so heavy during the attack. You were never weak. You were just walking through a fire designed to burn off everything that didn't align with your assignment. You weren't just defended, you were declared untouchable. And now, they can't even look at your life without being reminded of what they triggered. Let them sit in their own storm. Let their altars burn out. Let their confusion grow. Because the system doesn't forget. You were the test. You were the warning. And now, you are the consequence. If this truth rang in your soul like thunder, don't scroll past. This isn't just a message, it's confirmation. Like this video if you feel the fire. Subscribe to stay plugged into this frequency. Drop "I am the trigger" in the comments if you're done explaining your power to people who never deserved your light. And share this with another chosen one who needs to remember who they are. We're not just surviving, we're activating. And the enemy, they're finally realizing they picked the wrong soul to target.